Today, we're diving into a major development coming out of Denmark, a development that has triggered conversations, concerns, and analysis across Europe. Denmark has issued what many are calling a serious warning to the entire continent, and the full report they've presented sheds light on issues involving national security, geopolitical pressure, migration, energy vulnerability, and the rising influence of global powers. In this video script, we'll break down that warning in a clear, detailed, and accessible way, keeping the paragraphs short so everything is easy to follow. Denmark's warning didn't appear out of nowhere. It came after months of internal evaluations, intelligence briefings, and discussions among Danish political leaders. The Danish government has been increasingly vocal about the challenges Europe is facing, but this latest report is different in tone. It's more urgent, more direct, and more focused on the consequences of ignoring these warnings. The message is basically that Europe is entering a phase of instability that requires immediate attention and coordinated action. According to Danish officials, one of the major concerns is the growing geopolitical tension in Europe's neighborhood. Countries such as Russia and China have been expanding their influence in ways that directly affect European interests. Denmark highlights that Europe has underestimated how quickly these powers can shift the balance, whether through military activity, cyber attacks, economic pressure, or diplomatic maneuvering. The report suggests that Europe must stop assuming it is insulated from global power struggles, because these struggles are already reshaping the continent. A key part of Denmark's warning focuses on Russia. Since the war in Ukraine began, European countries have been forced to reassess their security and their energy strategies. Denmark emphasized that Russia is not only a military threat, but also a strategic disruptor. The report points out that Russia attempts to weaken European unity by influencing political movements, spreading misinformation, and exploiting divisions among EU member states. Denmark believes Europe must confront these tactics with stronger intelligence coordination and more transparent information sharing. Another major element of the warning involves cyber threats. Denmark has experienced cyber intrusions targeting critical infrastructure, government institutions, and private companies. The report states that these attacks are becoming more sophisticated and more frequent. Denmark is urging Europe to prepare for cyber attacks that could shut down power grids, disrupt transportation networks, or compromise sensitive data. The message is straightforward. Cyber warfare is not a future problem. It's already happening, and Europe is not fully prepared. Then there is the issue of migration. Denmark's assessment is that Europe will see larger migration waves in the coming years due to wars, climate change, economic collapse, and political instability in different parts of the world. Denmark argues that Europe needs a unified migration strategy because the current system is unsustainable. Countries handle migration very differently, and this lack of coordination creates tensions between member states. Denmark warns that if Europe does not agree on shared policies, migration pressures could trigger internal disputes that weaken the EU as a whole. Energy is another topic that Denmark placed at the center of its warning. The European energy crisis has revealed vulnerabilities that many governments ignored for too long. Denmark's report argues that relying heavily on external energy sources leaves Europe exposed to manipulation from foreign powers. Denmark is calling for a faster transition to renewable energy, greater investment in local energy production, and stronger energy sharing agreements between European nations. The message is that energy independence is not just an environmental goal, it is a matter of national security. The Danish government also addresses the economic challenges Europe is facing. Inflation, rising living costs, supply chain disruptions, and the slow recovery from previous global shocks are all putting pressure on European economies. Denmark argues that Europe needs a more resilient economic model, one that can withstand global disruptions without leaving countries vulnerable. The report suggests that Europe must strengthen internal trade, invest in new technologies, and improve manufacturing capacity to avoid dependency on unstable supply chains. Another part of Denmark's warning focuses on the Arctic. Denmark, through Greenland, has a unique position in the Arctic region. According to the full report, the Arctic is becoming a strategic hotspot, with Russia, China, and the United States competing for influence. Denmark is urging Europe to pay more attention to this region because what happens in the Arctic affects global trade routes, natural resources, and security dynamics. Denmark warns that ignoring the Arctic could leave Europe unprepared for a major geopolitical shift. Denmark also pointed out that European defense capabilities need urgent improvement. Many European countries have reduced military spending over the years, assuming peace was permanent. But the changing global environment has made that assumption outdated. Denmark argues that Europe must develop stronger military forces, improve defense coordination, and invest in new technology such as drones, cyber defense systems, and advanced surveillance tools. The warning is that Europe cannot rely solely on alliances for protection. It must take responsibility for its own defense. In the report, Denmark also highlights the danger of political polarization. European societies are experiencing increased division over issues like migration, energy, economic inequality, and international alliances. Denmark warns that extremist groups and foreign actors are exploiting this polarization to weaken European stability. The message is that European countries must reinforce democratic institutions, improve political dialogue, and tackle misinformation if they want to maintain social cohesion. Climate change is another area where Denmark is urging Europe to take stronger action. Rising temperatures, extreme weather, and environmental degradation are already affecting European cities, agriculture, and infrastructure. Denmark argues that failing to invest in climate adaptation will lead to economic losses, food shortages, and increased migration. The report emphasizes that climate policy should not be seen as an optional goal, but as a vital part of Europe's long-term survival strategy. Denmark also raises concerns about Europe's technological dependence on foreign countries. Many European industries rely heavily on technologies developed in the United States or Asia. Denmark warns that this dependency makes Europe vulnerable to external pressure. To address this, the report suggests that Europe must invest more in research, innovation, and digital infrastructure. Denmark stresses that technological independence is essential if Europe wants to remain competitive on the global stage. What makes Denmark's warning so significant is not just the content but the tone. The language used is more direct than previous reports. It reflects a growing concern that Europe may be entering a period of instability unlike anything seen in recent decades. Denmark is essentially telling Europe that ignoring these challenges would be a major mistake and that collective action is the only way to prevent future crises. Denmark's leaders have stated that Europe has the resources, the talent, and the political structure to overcome these challenges. But the question is whether European nations are willing to cooperate closely instead of prioritizing national interests. The report highlights that unity is Europe's greatest strength, but also its most vulnerable point when member states disagree. The full report also includes recommendations. Denmark suggests forming faster response security teams, strengthening border controls, enhancing intelligence sharing, investing in renewable energy, and improving cyber defense capabilities. The idea is to create a Europe that is more agile, more secure, and more independent. Denmark is also urging Europe to rethink its approach to global partnerships. The report suggests that Europe must diversify its relationships, reduce dependency on single countries, and create more balanced alliances. Denmark believes that Europe should work closely with partners who share democratic values and long-term stability goals. Another recommendation is for Europe to invest in education and skill development. Denmark argues that preparing the next generation for technological and economic changes is critical for long-term stability. This includes training in digital skills, cybersecurity, engineering, renewable energy technologies, and scientific research. The report also calls for improved crisis preparedness. Denmark observed that many European countries struggled to respond effectively to recent global crises. The warning is that future crises may be even more severe and that Europe must create stronger emergency response systems, stockpile critical resources, and develop better coordination mechanisms. Denmark's warning has generated mixed reactions across Europe. Some countries support the analysis and agree that Europe must act quickly. Others believe Denmark is exaggerating the risks or using fear to push political priorities. Regardless of the reaction, the fact that such a detailed and urgent report has come from a stable and secure country like Denmark has made many European leaders take notice. One of the most striking aspects of the report is that Denmark sees Europe's future as dependent on unity, innovation, and resilience. Without these elements, Europe could face increased fragmentation, economic instability, and security threats. Denmark's message is clear: Europe must prepare now or face bigger challenges later. Denmark's warning also highlights the growing complexity of global politics. The world is becoming more interconnected, more competitive, and more unpredictable. Denmark argues that Europe must adapt to this new reality by becoming more strategic and more forward-thinking. The report suggests that Europe can no longer rely on old systems and old assumptions. The world has changed, and Europe must change with it. Another underlying theme in Denmark's warning is the importance of democratic values. The report stresses that Europe must protect freedom of speech, independence of institutions, and the rule of law. Denmark believes these values are not just moral principles, but also strategic assets that differentiate Europe from authoritarian powers. The report concludes with a call for urgent and collective action. Denmark is not simply pointing out problems, it is urging Europe to take concrete steps to strengthen its stability. The warning is serious, but it also carries a sense of hope. Denmark believes Europe can overcome these challenges if it acts decisively and cooperatively. As we reflect on Denmark's message, it becomes clear that the warning is not directed at one country or one issue. It is directed at the entire continent and at a wide range of challenges. Denmark is essentially calling for a new era of European cooperation and preparedness. This warning serves as a reminder that Europe's security and stability cannot be taken for granted. The challenges ahead are real, and Denmark wants the continent to face them with clarity and determination. The full report is an invitation to rethink Europe's future, strengthen its defenses, and build a more resilient society. Thank you for watching and following along with this detailed breakdown of Denmark's warning to Europe. If you found this script helpful, be sure to share your thoughts or questions. Stay tuned for more deep dives into important global developments, and as always, thanks for being part of the channel.